The second hymn of Callimachus. To Apollo by Matthew Prior. How the laurel, great Apollo's tree, and all the cavern shakes. Far off, the man that is unhallow'd, for the God approaches. Hark, he knocks. The gates feel the glad impulse, and the sever'd bars submissive clink against their brazen portals. Why do the Delian palms incline their boughs, self-moved? And hovering swans, their throats released from native silence, carol sounds harmonious? Begin, young men, the hymn. Let all your harps break their inglorious silence, and the dance, in mystic numbers trod, explain the music, but first by ardent prayer and clear lustration purge the contagious spots of human weakness. Impure no mortal can behold Apollo. So may ye flourish favour'd by the God, in youth with happy nuptials, and in age with silver hairs, and fair descent of children. So lay foundations for aspiring cities, and bless your spreading colonies' increase. Pay sacred reverence to Apollo's song, lest wrathful the far-shooting god emit his fatal arrows. Silent nature stands, and seas subside, obedient to the sound of Eopian. Nor dares Thetis longer bewail her loved Achilles' death, for Phoebus was his foe. Nor must sad Niobe in fruitless sorrow persevere, or weep e'en through the Phrygian marble. Hapless mother, whose fondness could compare her mortal offspring to those which fair Latona bore to Jove. Again repeat ye, Eopian. Against the deity 'tis hard to strive. He that resists the power of Ptolemy resists the power of heaven, for power from heaven derives, and monarchs rule by gods appointed. Recite Apollo's praise till night draws on, the ditty still unfinished, and the day unequal to the Godhead's attributes various, and matter copious of your songs. Sublime at Jove's right hand Apollo sits, and thence distributes honor, gracious king, and thence of verse. Perpetual. From his robe flows light ineffable. His harp, his quiver, and liction bow, are gold. With golden sandals his feet are shod. How rich! How beautiful! Beneath his steps the yellow mineral rises, and earth reveals her treasures. Youth and beauty eternal deck his cheeks. From his fair head perfumes distill their sweets, and cheerful health, his duteous handmaid, through the air improved, with lavish hand diffuses scents ambrosial. The spearman's arm, by thee, great God, directed, sends forth a certain wound. The laurel'd bard, inspired by thee, composes verse immortal. Taught by thy art divine, the sage physician eludes the urn, and chains or exiles death. Thee, Nomian, we adore, for that from heaven descending, thou on fair Amphissus's banks didst guard Admetus's herds. Thence the vow produced an ampler store of milk. The she-goat, not without pain, dragged her distended udder, and ewes, that erst brought forth but single lambs, now dropped their twofold burdens. Blessed the cattle on which Apollo cast his favoring eye. But, Phoebus, thou to man beneficent delight'st in building cities. Bright Diana, kind sister to thy infant deity, new-weaned, and just arising from the cradle, brought hunted wild goats' heads and branching antlers of stags, the fruit and honor of her toil. These with discerning hand thou knew'st to range, young as thou wast, and in the well-framed models, with emblematic skill and mystic order, thou showedst where towers or battlements should rise, where gates should open, or where walls should compass, while from thy childish pastime, man received the future strength and ornament of nations. Batus, our great progenitor, now touched the Libyan strand, when the foreboding crow flew on the right before the people, marking the country destined the auspicious seat of future kings, and favor of the God, whose oath is sure, and promise stands eternal. Or Bodromian hear'st thou pleased, our clarion Phoebus, great king? For different are thy names, as thy kind hand has founded many cities, are dealt benign thy various gifts to man. Carnian let me call thee, for my country calls thee Carnian. The fair colony thrice by thy gracious guidance was transported ere settled in Cyrene. There we appointed thy annual feasts, kind God, and blessed thy altars, smoking with hecatombs of slaughtered bulls, as Carneus, thy high priest and favored friend, had erst ordained, and with mysterious rites our great forefathers taught their sons to worship. Carnian Phoebus, Eopian, the yellow crocus there, and fair Narcissus, reserve the honors of their winter store to deck thy temple, till returning spring diffuses nature's various pride, and flowers innumerable, by the soft southwest opened, and gathered by religious hands, rebound their sweets from odoriferous pavement. Perpetual fires shine hallowed on thy altars, when annual the Carnian feast is held. The warlike Libyans clad in armor lead the dance. with clanging swords and shields they beat the dreadful measure. In the chorus join their women, brown, but beautiful, such rites to thee well pleasing. Nor had yet thy votaries, from Greece transplanted, touched Cyrene's banks, and lands determined for their last abodes, but wandered through Azales' horrid forest dispersed, when from Myrtis's craggy brow, fond of the maid, auspicious to the city which must hereafter bear her favour'd name, thou gracious deignedst to let the fair one view her typic people. Thou with pleasure taught'st her to draw the bow, to slay the shaggy lion, and stop the spreading ruin of the plains. Happy the nymph who, honoured by thy passion, was aided by thy power. The monstrous Python durst tempt thy wrath in vain, for dead he fell, to thy great strength and golden arms. Unequal, Io. While thy unerring hand alanced another, and another dart, the people joyful repeated Io. Iopian, alance the dart, Apollo, for the safety and health of man, gracious, thy mother bore thee. Envy, thy latest foe, suggested thus, like thee I am a power immortal, therefore to thee dare speak. How canst thou favour partial those poets who write little? Vast and great is what I love, the far extended ocean to a small rivulet I prefer. Apollo spurned envy with his foot, and thus the god, demon, the headlong current of Euphrates, Assyrian river, copious runs, but muddy, and carries forward with his stupid force polluting dirt, his torrent still augmenting, his waves still more defiled. Meanwhile the nymphs Melissan, sacred and recluse to Ceres, studious to have their offerings well received, and fit for heavenly use, from little urns pour streams select and purity of waters. Io, Apollo, mighty king, let envy, ill-judging and verbose, from Lethe's lake draw tons unmeasurable, while thy favour administers to my ambitious thirst the wholesome draught from Aganippes' spring genuine, and with soft murmurs gently rilling adown the mountains where thy daughters haunt.